The meeting of the Dudley-Charlton Regional School Committee is now in session. It is Wednesday, April 24th. It is 7 p.m. We're at the Charlton Middle School, and we will all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of our regular meeting of Wednesday, April 10th.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Catherine?
No, I'm all set.
Okay.
I do my
A-
homework.
Anyone else?
No.
Okay, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the executive session of Wednesday, April 10th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Stephanie? In favor? Okay, you're here. Motion carries, it's unanimous. Approval of the warrants this evening. We do have warrants that will make its way around the table. Citizens Forum. Anyone this evening that would like to come to speak with us? Okay. Communications, Dr. Nash.
None this evening.
And I have none. How about our members?
I do.
Go ahead, Jamie.
I spoke to a member of the fire department here in Charlton in passing, and he said that they're going around doing presentations about the safety complex building that is being proposed in Charlton, and said if the school committee had any interest in hearing the proposal, given how it could financially impact the town of Charlton, which could financially impact the school committee, they would be willing to come in. So if you wanted to
We'll set a
talk
date
about it,
for
or-
them to come in. I think
They said they would be happy to do that.
we could have them in and listen to what they have to say.
He said very openly that they were looking to explain to everybody in town what the proposals are for the safety building, but he wanted to be very clear that they would like to work together with the school district because they expect and know from safety points that there are school initiatives and school building needs that will be coming up very quickly in town.
So we'll have Dr. Nash call to see what their preference would be to come in and speak with us, okay?
Sure. Thank you.
Good. Anybody else with communications? Go ahead.
Again, I spoke in passing with there's a new director of the Webster Dudley Boys and Girls Club, and he is trying to do some new things with the club. And he was, we were talking, and we didn't know if it would be appropriate for him to come and present what they're doing.
No, I think
For the
that would be
kids.
good for the kids, because a lot of the kids go after school, so.
Yes,
it'd
and I
be
think
good.
there's a lot of misconceptions
Right.
about what goes on there,
Yeah.
so I think that it would be.
So we could
It'd be
set up
nice.
a date for him to come in.
And he was saying too, like, maybe not until next fall.
Oh, okay.
It's fine.
Okay, good.
So.
So we'll keep that in mind with the new superintendent then, if he wants to come in for next fall. Superintendent's report. Dr.
It's an
Nash.
Oral report this evening. This Friday, I'll be beginning my transition meetings with the superintendent-elect Lamache, primarily. He wanted to focus on some of the personnel issues. We'll be talking a little bit about the Mars report. I will be able to bring back to you, his recommendation or his thoughts about it on May 8th, which is when that will come forward for you for discussion. I anticipate also that we'll have some discussion about some of our personnel issues, so he's aware. Usually, there's a lot of discussion about positions that we're posting and things that are happening. Also, he had asked about town meetings and those things, so it will probably be something that I would anticipate in the next 2 months that we have left, if you will, of my being here, that we'll probably be setting these up at least every couple of weeks. The nice part is because he is really next door to where I live, it's a stop for me on the way home to spend 2 or 3 hours with him. So I think that will be very worthwhile.
Thank you.
Yep.
We'll table the student rep, Kaylee O'Brien's report. That brings us to new business. Director of Finance and Operations report, and that's Rich.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of things for the committee this evening. First, Powers and Sullivan conducted their audit of the end-of-year report filing with the Department of Education. You guys all have a copy of the audit. There were no findings included there, so I'm very happy about that. I know we'll be talking about the FY20 budget as a separate item on the agenda. I did pass out an updated memo, updated based on the Budget and Finance Subcommittee meeting that was held Tuesday morning, April 23rd. There were a couple of changes from what I had included in my initial memo, and we'll go over those when we get to that point in the agenda. And then the last thing was, with the vote for joining the joint purchase group for health insurance, the committee does need to appoint a representative for the Mass Strategic Health Group and a backup. As I indicated in my memo, I think the logical choice would be me and Mary Ellen Sorbonne as the backup.
Okay, so we'll take a vote on that. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve Rich as the go-to person,
As the representative.
representative.
Second.
Discussion? Well, I was going to take that separately. Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, and then we need a backup, and that will be, I'll entertain a motion to approve Mary Ellen. Okay, do I have a second? Discussion? Okay, all in favor? Motion carries, it's Mary Ellen.
We'll take anybody as a volunteer for a second, for a tertiary backup if anybody's interested. No, I'm just kidding. That's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. FY '20 budget update, and do you want to start it already?
No, Rich is
Okay.
fine. You
Okay,
have a
Rich.
memo?
So, the school committee saw, as part of my finance director's update, some budget information and some budget changes for FY '20 that were proposed. After meeting with the Budget and Finance Subcommittee, there were a couple of changes that they recommended at this point in time. So I'll just spell those out for the committee. Basically, the Budget and Finance Subcommittee is recommending that we include $70,000 in the budget for the facility study. So that would eat up the $59,784 of savings that we actually would have achieved from the health insurance savings. Additionally, as part of the memo, but for disclosure to the public and the members of the audience, we also included $26,000 that is needed to pay for an additional instructional aid at Charlton Elementary School, as well as $265,000 in the budget for the cost of a reading curriculum for grades 1 through 4. No decisions have been made about exactly which reading curriculum to go with for the district, or whether or not we're actually going to purchase this. But in order to have the funds and be able to go for a July 1 and a new school year implementation, the money does need to be included in the budget as opposed to being appropriated, midway through next year.
Can I just add? Go ahead.
Is that okay? Does that mean that if the money is appropriated and we don't make a decision, we can encumber the money for future years so that if we're not going to roll it out as of September and we're going to take a longer period of time to review it, we could do that?
The money would be available to spend through June 30th of next year. We'd have to make a commitment by June 30th in order to encumber it.
But that gives us the opportunity to.
Absolutely. Yep, it's in the budget. We don't have to choose, for July 1. We can choose for July 1, 2020 if we want.
Sure, all right, thank you.
I just wanted to add, just for the general public, the total we saved from the insurance is $350,784. I think that's important to get out there. That's where all these expenditures are coming from, that
Yeah,
Mr.
that's
Matthew
the
just mentioned.
gross amount.
So the amount we saved was $350,784.
And the other change was, my initial calculation had included the House Ways and Means revenue numbers that were released. Upon discussion with the Budget and Finance Subcommittee, there was a lot of hesitation to use those monies as the budget process has been unsteady at best, I guess, from Beacon Hill. It is difficult and challenging as we know, for them to put together a budget, especially last year where the timeline went into July before they actually approved a budget. The days of a joint resolution with a guaranteed floor are sorely missed. And even though our reps had indicated at the March meeting that, they found trying to do that even difficult, you're really just throwing a dart sometimes with where you think they may end up. The House Ways and Means had a number of amendments geared towards education, including studies of regional schools, rural transportation, changes to the circuit breaker formula, that were all ultimately defeated. The Chapter 70 money and the regional transportation monies did hold, but there's still this process with the Senate and then the reconciliation process. So the advice from Budget and Finance Subcommittee was to not include those revenues at this time. As a result, with the savings, as Mrs. Kabala had indicated, of $350,784, those monies have been reallocated within the budget for most of it towards one-time purchases. So even though we'll be using, right now, the plan is to use the same amount of E&D as we had before the health insurance change, it's only for 1 year, or at least 324,000 of it, almost 325,000 of it, is only for a one-time expense. I've updated the revenue page so that we can track easier the amount of excess and deficiency funds that we put into the recurring expenses, the regular operating budget, and those one-time expenses. I don't know if there are any other questions.
Last week we had last time we met, we had a presentation about the civics books, or the need for civics textbooks. And has that been allocated anywhere?
Go ahead.
It's my understanding from Mrs. Matarosian that we actually can pilot new civics textbooks for a year.
We can pilot it, okay. Great, thank
I have a question. The assessments to the town based on this stay the same then?
Yes.
And Rich, we should vote on the budget again.
I'd ask you to vote just because we did change the revenue page a
Okay,
little
and
bit. if only in
the
format.
revenue that was changed, it was one number on the last in the reserve. Now it's broken down to reserve annual and reserves one time. So that's why we're going to vote on it again, but nothing else has changed. Everything's the same. So, but I will read it anyway. The assessment to the town of Charlton will be $13,489,957. And to Dudley, the net assessment will be $8,780,840. And then our total budget will be $50,006,069. So I'll entertain a motion to approve our budget once again. Not entertain a motion? Okay, do I have a second? Okay, discussion. Go ahead.
One question. I just want to make sure that by voting on the budget, I'm not sure that I agree with the potential cost of a facility study. I don't want to have a vote on the budget be a vote of me saying yes on a facility study. Is that?
I think you can vote for it, and we can use, if the vote doesn't go through, it's going to be used for something else. It's $70,000 still in our
Voting on the
budget,
money.
but used
Okay.
for something else.
Okay, so it's not
It'll be,
allocated,
right, Rich?
DRA discussion is one of your articles.
right?
Yeah,
So what you're hearing is basically the recommendation that has come out of the meeting
Right.
this week with FinCom. But you as a committee will make a determination this evening if you want to do that.
yeah.
Okay.
And once we vote on a number, we can change and transfer whatever we want
Okay, I
with
just wanna
the
make sure.
majority of the committee agreeing. So that's not locking in $70,000 with
Okay,
capital.
perfect.
Okay? So did I have a motion to approve the budget? And do I have a second? Okay? And any more discussion on it? All in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous. And that concludes your report.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Budget and Finance Subcommittee report, And Elena's not here this evening, so we will go to Stephanie. Thank you.
All right, I'm just going to touch on what Mr. Matthews said about the facility study. We followed up on doing a facilities capital plan in response to the need of the district's capital needs for both the short and long term, and our ability to plan effectively with both towns' budget and finance. Recommended that we seek an RFQ, which is request for quote, for facility study, recognizing that the talent and commitment of our facility staff has allowed us to maintain our aging buildings. Having an outside company perform this study will provide us with access to expertise in the areas of electrical engineering, structural engineering, and HVAC. And that money would be coming out of the $350,000. And I'm going to say from the last meeting, I was against it, just like as you, because I didn't want it coming out of our budget. But seeing that we have this money from the savings of the insurance, because it's not coming out directly out of our budget and taking away from something that we have right now, it's a good thing to have because of the roofs here and the roofs at the roof at DMS. But we're also going with the substitute software systems. The best system would be Frontline. It's $6,000 up front, and the cost front with cost, and annual would be less than $10,000, which this money is coming from the stipends that we already use. Moving forward, the cost is less than the stipend positions. The use of the software will create greater efficiency in filling positions and will put us at a competitive edge with other communities that already use this software. The next thing is school lunch debt. As you know, last time we had, Matt was able to collect $5,000. He's now collected $1,600 more. He has been still in contact with people, and he has not gotten a company yet to, right? He hasn't gotten a company for collection. Yes, he hasn't gotten a company yet. And then the last thing that we discussed was school.
Can I ask a question about that through the chair? Is that okay?
ahead.
Are you sure? Has any of the debt that we were talking about been reviewed by the principals, and had that discussion occur that Mr. Chaplin was talking about maybe some of those numbers maybe not being exactly accurate to represent how much debt there was?
If I may. Yes, Mr. Greenberg has been meeting actively with the principals
Okay.
to review their balances, to see if there are any special circumstances
Sure.
regarding any particular families, et cetera.
So do we know what the real number is right now?
The real number is what was presented.
It still is that real number,
That
even
was
though
the
the
real
principals kind of, or Mr. Chaplin anyway, had maybe an outlook that they could review it. Is Mr. Chaplin here?
That's the balance brought forward since
Okay.
last
And
summer.
Stephanie, would you repeat that last, I didn't hear what you had to say about the collection agency. What did you say?
He is interviewing with collection.
Mr. Greenberg is putting together a list of potential collection agency companies for us to utilize to collect some of the outstanding debt, especially the larger accounts. When he's got that list compiled, he and I will sit down, review it, and interview the companies to see which one's the most advantageous for us to use. We're most concerned about the approach that they're going to use. While percentage is very important, we want to, recoup as many dollars as we can. We want to make sure that this is not going to be a heavy-handed approach to families.
And you know what I would like to see too? We haven't gotten any financial reports on that cafeteria, the revolving account. So I'd like some accounting to see how we're doing in that. I know we can't use it for the school lunch program, but we're using it for other things. So if we take money out of our operating budget to pay for these lunches, we're still not losing money. But I would like an accounting on that, okay?
Sure.
Because we haven't had the financial report in a while
Yeah.
to see
Yeah, we'll do it for
what we're
the March one.
making with the revolving account. Anybody
Yes,
else?
the last thing would be school choice. We still haven't received, out of the 60 slots that we opened, as of right now, we had only had 4 7th grade slots and 3 for 8th grade, and it was 15 for 9th grade. And we need, and I know that we put out a press release yesterday about it, we need those school choice numbers, and because over $800,000 of our budget is based on those school choice numbers.
4 people have applied for grades 10 to 12, and we didn't open to school choice, so
Oh, that's right.
I don't know if we want to address that tonight to open it up to 10. We have 4 people that have applied, but they don't qualify because we didn't open it up to 10th to 12th grade. So I don't know if we want to add that tonight or if we should wait, how we should handle that.
I think it's still early.
Okay.
Parents don't typically, well, I think while there's some need to get it out there, parents don't usually start thinking about this until the school year comes more to a close. So I think you'll start to see that happen. I anticipate that unfortunately it will happen in June and July, when it typically happens, when people pick up the phone and say, oops, and in August. So I would be worried if by August 1st, you had not filled your slots, the 60 slots that we need to fill. And then, you know, maybe at your July meeting, get an update and then make a decision then. Again, I would caution you, when you start filling in high school at the upper grades, you begin to look at the issues that present themselves, which generally are, one, will they meet the graduation requirements coming in, you know, in grades 11 or 12? I think if you're going to open it up, you want to try to open up probably to a lower grade such as 10. But as soon as you get into 11 and 12, generally most students want to graduate unless there are some challenges or issues for them at the high school that they have now spent almost three plus years in. And usually, you will not have someone willingly want to transfer when they're in the 11th or 12th grade, so. But I think you've got some time, bottom line is, I think we've got some time. Yeah.
That concludes it, thank you. Any other questions for Stephanie? Okay. Report of the Policy Review Subcommittee, proposed for amendment, policy ADC. Mary.
Okay, so that was the tobacco products on school premises, ADC, and this is the second reading.
This will be the second reading, right? And we'll adopt it this evening. So first, I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading of the policy ADC. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries. Now I'll entertain a motion to approve our second reading of policy ADC and the adoption this evening.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Oh, second.
Oh, okay. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous.
Could I ask the policy subcommittee, I just thought of it this afternoon, when we adopted that new kindergarten program that they have to be 5 by September 1st, if we adopt it now, Mrs. Pacheco had sent out some letters that will kind of contradict that. Should we change the date of when that it starts? Remember, she had sent out some letters to kids in March, I think she told us.
I think we did.
We did, I
Yeah, but I
think
mean, the
it's-
adoption will say it was adopted like April, but we're contradicting it for these 6 kids. You understand what I'm saying?
It goes into effect July, correct?
I don't know what
Isn't
it
that
said,
what
because it usually says
Isn't that
adopted.
what we said?
We said.
I know, but what did we
that,
put for the adoption date?
We did take it in that, we discussed that.
But then we did put the date for in the effect July 1st, in that,
Yes.
Did it say July 1st?
Motion.
I don't know what we put down. I thought we put,
yeah, because I
it
remember
says,
we
okay, so there's
did
no
discuss
contradiction
it.
with those kids. Okay, I'm just checking. I
Yeah.
thought of that on the way in. I
Yeah.
wondered about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody else? Okay. That brings us to consideration of request for student enrollments. Dr. Nash.
Yes, this is not to be confused with school choice. This is refers to Article 23 in the collective bargaining agreement with the DCTA. And there actually are 2 categories in that particular article. I provided you with the direct language from the first paragraph. First paragraph deals with teachers who reside in the district who may request for their students to be enrolled in the Dudley-Charlton School District. The second one is for those who reside, the second paragraph of those who reside in Massachusetts. To date, I have received 1 request that I have listed for you on page 2 of my report. Cindy Snow, who is a teacher at DMS, has requested to enroll under, again, the language in paragraph 1 of this article, her 2 children in grade 5 at DMS. And then under the second paragraph, which is a little bit different in the sense that it requires a vote, as you will see. Beginning in the school year of 2017-18, teachers who reside in Massachusetts but outside of the district will be allowed to enroll their children or stepchildren in a school or existing program within the district appropriate to the child's age, grade, level, and ability. The number and location of openings under this section will be set by the school committee by May 1st of the preceding year. Expenses in excess of the district's per pupil cost will be borne by the parent or the guardian. To date, I have received requests from the teachers that are listed below for their children to attend the Dudley-Charlton schools beginning in the 2019-20 year. All requests come from staff who reside in Massachusetts. And so you will see that I have Justin Savigno, who is a teacher at our high school, for his son Elijah to attend kindergarten at Mason Road School. Amy Cormier, another teacher at the high school, for her daughter Audrey Barcelo to attend kindergarten at Mason Road School. Katie Burt, teacher at Heritage, for her son Grayson Burt to attend kindergarten at Charlton Elementary School. And Amy Bassett, Charlton Middle School teacher, for her son Benjamin to attend grade 5 at CMS.
So these 4 need approval.
The
A
current,
vote.
the current
Approval.
contract language requires that, that you vote the openings and the slots, and
So
so
do you recommend?
I certainly do.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve the 4 that we have seen to come into the district for schooling.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on it? Go ahead.
Discussion. Just a question about enrollment numbers, because weren't we concerned that we were gonna, if enrollment was low at Mason Road, we were gonna transfer a kindergarten teacher over to,
So
at
I have
Charlton?
included the numbers for you
Yep,
in that paragraph after the
yeah,
listing. Currently, enrollments, and this is as of this past week when I spoke with Anne Marie LaFawn, the registrar.
right.
We have 119 students at CES, 78 at MRS thus far. For point of comparison, for this current year, I've given you the numbers, 143 at CES and 110. I anticipate she is enrolling people on a daily basis.
Right.
So those numbers certainly are going to change, and we'll be looking at those really through the next month and a half to make some decisions as to whether or not, one, we have the ability to move a teacher. We'll have to make sure that Mason Road, obviously, is going to stay where it is. Currently, their kindergarten is an anomaly in that it's smaller, their class, and therefore moving up to grade 1. But again, as you know, as most people know, since kindergarten isn't required, some students will just come in 1. So we have to kind of monitor that a little bit. So hopefully we'll know before the end of the school year whether or not it's advantageous for us to make that move of transferring a teacher from Mason Road over to CES.
Okay, before we take the vote, Kevin wanted to say something. Kevin?
That's okay, I only need a small space. I'd like to ask that you vote in favor of this motion for a number of reasons. I know Mr. Matthew and I, the 2 remaining people that were in the room when we discussed this, and there were a number of reasons why we feel it's a strong measure to take. It was interesting, Dr. Nash just mentioned something earlier about people coming in later on, and maybe this is something to think about down the road. And that is, as I've discussed with some colleagues, we were talking about getting some of the students in the younger grades, and I know it's difficult, but the interesting part is we find that they acclimate themselves to our culture. Whereas when we find some of these people coming in later on in their academic years, it's almost like, I hate to say it, but they're dragging some baggage from wherever they came from. And someone brought up a success story that we have at the high schooler right now who came into this school barely speaking English, and now he's on, as Amy just said to me, he's on the honor roll, and he's doing incredible. And I think that's something to think about going down the road, is that I know it's a difficult decision to take them in when they're younger, but at the same time, they've shown such a level of success acclimating to our culture, becoming part of our culture. And the other part is we like that, maybe it didn't get discussed, but when we discussed this as a provision in the contract, keeping these teachers' children in our district keeps the teachers in the district. As we all know, sometimes if you're running out of the school in the afternoon, you have to go home to take care of your own child. But if you know your child is here and taken care of in a district that you love and you represent, there's more time that they're able to give to the district. So it's a real win-win as far as we can see.
Thank
Also
you.
financial, because that counts more than school choice. That's an actual person in the building, so it's financially for us, it's more money, which is another plus.
Thank you for hearing that.
Okay,
I
go
just have a
ahead.
question. When I read that this has, by May 1st, we have to do the second part of this. What about the people that the teachers that live in one side of the district and want their children to go to the other side of the district? When did they have to get that information?
There isn't a, there
There
isn't
is a request
Yeah,
here.
there isn't a deadline actually in this article for any of these requests, which is
Okay.
interesting, other than the fact that the school committee needs to vote. But you certainly could have additional staff submit requests
Okay.
later date, and I'll bring them back. The unfortunate part is the way the language is, the committee's supposed to vote by May 1st.
Okay.
So I think probably the staff are using that date as my hunch is, that they're using that date as, getting their request into us.
Yeah, no,
But,
I know a couple of other teachers that
Right.
are not listed here, and I want to make sure they're not excluded.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous,
Thank you.
and that concludes that?
That does,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Capital Plan Study, Dr. Nash.
I'm going to turn this over
To Rich.
to Mr. Matthew.
Okay.
Thank you very much. As the committee recalls, we did have a company come in to do a presentation about both facility study, as well as including a component of the educational planning as part of that. I think I'll turn to Mrs. Reed for the opinion of the Budget and Finance Subcommittee, but, based on what I heard at the meeting, while it would be nice to be able to do both facets of that study, the facility portion of it is what is truly needed so that we can set a baseline and start to get into conversations with both towns about our capital needs. Having this study done at all 7 schools would provide that nice, clean baseline, and something that, if updated every 10 years or every 15 years, in a regular cycle, will keep us ahead of the curve for being proactive with repairs. Mrs. Reed, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add about.
No, I think I said what I felt the same way. As I said before, I went in, and unfortunately, Mr. Matthew has seen, I kind of did a 360 once we had the money to do it, because it is a need. And it doesn't mean that it's going to cost $70,000. We still have to put it out to get an RFQ, correct? It's not gonna,
Yeah,
it
the-
doesn't mean it's going to cost the full.
This would not be a accept the lowest bid process. You would interview firms, find out, you'd have to come up with criteria for judging the firms, but who ranked the highest in the subcommittee's eyes, you would then enter into price negotiations. And, as we talked about as part of the budget, at this time, we do have $70,000 allocated towards that. It doesn't mean that we have to spend all $70,000. We could say, no, we're only spending 50, and it buys us what it buys us. It's all to be determined based on those negotiations.
I think when DRA came in, they said 50 to 70. They did give 50 to 70, so they did start with a 50 number, so that's, could be that low.
And we're doing this so that both towns know, we have capital needs here, and we're not on their radar in any shape or form in any of their talks for their budgets. And if we have this written in black and white, and, you know, the roof here at CMS is horrible, not for any lack of anybody, it's just the roof, it's gonna need to be fixed. And if we have a complete report stating, and it's not just coming, we can say it, we can all sit here and say, we've got buckets and rooms and everything, but until somebody actually comes from the outside, maybe they'll actually listen. And this is why we wanted to do this report.
Do you want to finish first? Jamie and then Kathy.
So I think if we say that we have a budget up to $70,000, then we're going to get quotes for up to $70,000. So what are we using to base $70,000 as the high end of our risk at, or our assessment, I guess, at, because of the number of facilities we're looking at? I mean,
footage,
the square footage.
overall square footage
So this
numbers
is-
generally.
So this is an acceptable,
No, I think when you
Business
put your
practice?
request for quotes out, you're going to get and interview companies who have the strength and the background and the skill set, who have the structural engineers, the electrical engineers, the people that you need to do two things. Not just producing the report as it is giving you really detailed information for cost.
so I'm not in disagreement with that
So,
part of it.
but in answering your question specifically, I think it's going to, you know, we'll probably see a range when we sit down, and it will really be, but it's generally based on the square footage of a building and the number of buildings overall, obviously.
Okay, and then my next question is, if we put an RFQ out and we get X number of people to put a qualified bid in, and we are unsatisfied as a committee with any of them, are we required to pick one because we put it out to bid?
No, you can
So
reject
we
it.
can just
Reject.
reject it and stop the project at that point? So this request is specifically just to see what proposals we receive? This is not to move forward at this point in time. This is to see what people propose to us. What companies?
I think
No, I think that.
I think there needs to be some consensus from this committee as to whether or not you want to do a capital facilities plan study.
So,
Whether or not,
I
in order
guess-
for you to move forward to your towns in the future, to present what your real costs are, how would you do that, and is this the manner in which you want to do that?
so to Mrs. Carmignani's point, I'm, or what I assume it to be, I'm all for saying we need this, and I think this is obviously a good business practice that happens in many different kinds of business. But I don't know that $70,000 is the correct price tag for that. I've seen studies occur at $30,000 for communities for things like this, and still be a very valid, viable report. So that's why I was trying to say, where did we get to $70,000?
DRA gave us a quote from 50 to
Yeah, 50 to
70,000 when they made their presentation. They actually gave the figures.
But they were one company who had a lot of
Right,
bells and
right.
whistles that we may
But-
not need.
But that's where we got the figure from. We used their figure.
Again, if I may, once a subcommittee is chosen to work on this project, and we interview the companies, you negotiate with them about the price. So it's not a bid process. They're not going to say, here's the price, that's it. They may give you a price. You may say, hey, that's great, that's fantastic. You're going to do all this stuff for that price? Great. Or, you know, geez, we really can't afford that. We don't like that price. We'd like to see it lower. And you
Okay.
work with them. And if you can't reach a price agreement with them, then you're allowed to go to the second choice company, if you so choose.
And our
Or,
vote can cap at 70,000. We don't want to spend more than 70,000, but maybe it'll be a lot less than 70,000. Kathy, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I understand the need for this, definitely. I guess my question is, and I'm concerned about the budget overall, that if we don't get our school choice numbers in, we might need that 70,000 to cover our expenses. And that I don't wanna like say, yes, we're gonna put our money in this basket, and then when we really might need that money. That's what I'm
Yes.
concerned on. So like, I wouldn't want to vote on, yes, let's go ahead with this until after we know what our school choice funding is.
How long can we wait?
Well, it depends on the timeline that the committee wishes. What was discussed at Budget and Finance was including it in the budget this year rather than including it for next year's budget. So in hopes of getting information for the summer and fall to be able to have a long-term discussion with both towns and present it in this timeframe next year, and hopefully go for vote and secure the funding. If the committee doesn't want to start the process until the fall, well, that's going to delay everything by a couple of months, but a couple of months are not a showstopper. We're just going to need to condense that timeframe, that's all.
I would think that initially, when we spoke with both groups, DRA and the J
Studio J,
Studio,
yeah.
Studio J, the total report, including educational study, was somewhere around a 5-month window. I think this is probably more like 3 months that you could get the turnaround of the report and document. So if you wanted to wait for a period of time and you decided to take some action during the summer, you still could get that report potentially in your hands by end of November, and the point of getting it, bringing it forward as part of your bigger picture of your budget, you could probably make that. So you still have a window of time.
So we could really table it for now and then bring it up
I think
again in the summer or fall.
You could. I think probably what you're looking for is some sense of, do you want us to even start to have some discussions with companies and start to think about this coming forward in the summer, bring it back up? Do you want to just table it and say, no, we don't want to do a study like this at all? We'll just figure out how we're going to figure out what our needs are for our facilities. So getting a sense of, do we go forward sometime in the future with an outside firm to conduct some kind of master facilities study that will produce a document that will tell us what costs are, that will give us a priority of the needs, and do it in a 1 to 3, 5 to 7, whatever layout, so you can present it to the towns. Is that something that you're thinking about doing? Timing of it, we can wait. But if you're not, then let's just not discuss it in the
I
future.
think we should have more discussion on it and maybe some research on the different companies, because we only heard from one.
We heard from two, because we were in the budget.
Well, you heard from two, but this whole school committee only heard from one.
Through the chair, may I?
Go ahead.
My opinion is that while we have the funds available, I think that we should at least move forward with having conversations with various companies to see what they can provide. Having been and being a project manager for more years than I am going to admit on camera, I was a little concerned with the presentation that we did have the other day, because I felt that there was a lot of fluff in the plan and a lot of wasted time in the
Right.
plan. And quite frankly, I was sitting there going, why would they spend all that time and all our funds to do that sort of thing? So I'm thinking that we could significantly cut down the cost, either with them or with another company, and get the results that we're looking
Good.
for. But I think that we should move forward.
And I agree with Mary.
So we're looking to do an RFQ. It doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to do it if the price isn't right, correct? So if we put it out, if we wait for a company to get an RFQ, put out an RFQ, it doesn't mean that we have to go with that company. It doesn't mean we have to go with any of the companies.
Correct.
We're just right now voting to say we're gonna start the process, because this is a process that's gonna take a while. And doing that facility study for 3 months, now we're gonna have to go out for bid to get prices on a new roof. And that's gonna take a process. So now, if we keep pushing this off, we're not gonna get the roof while the kids are not in school next summer. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, we keep pushing this off, and this is where we're gonna keep running into this, and nothing's gonna get fixed. So, and I'm not trying to be, I promise you, I was the same, you can look at my notes from the last meeting, I was in the same boat as you. But I know it needs to be done, and, you know, talking with the subcommittee the other day, it changed my mind, because we have this money, and it's not free cash, but it's money that needs to go into the buildings that we have right now in order to have a future for the district.
And we can vote on starting the process. We don't necessarily have to vote on the amount.
Right.
Because we only heard the school committee I'm talking about with
Right.
one company. So I agree. I think we should start the process, but we don't have to say, well, we're going to spend $70,000 this evening, right?
I think the relevant question for this evening is, you know, is there enough of a commitment from the committee to hire any firm from outside to come in and do a facilities study for us? If not, then the committee will have to have some discussions to figure out how would we do it ourselves. And I think, you know, that's the struggle that you're gonna have, from my perspective, and having done this before. You don't have the staff, even if you had a facilities manager, and that person had an engineering degree, which I had, they don't have all of the qualifications or the tools ready for them. It will be costly, but when you look at the number of buildings you have, and even if you were to spend $70,000, it's $10,000 a building, roughly, to do a study, and when you look at what that costs are gonna be, for whatever they find that needs to be done over the next 10 years, you're gonna see that money, you know, in the end, is gonna be very well spent, because no one in town wants you to go forward with something that isn't a need and that you don't have real cost on. You need to have real costs, and you need to have the solution as to whether it is better to do X or Y in a building, based on its age, based on its infrastructure, based on all the other things that they'll look at. So, yes,
Well, I
it's not saying it's gonna cost $70,000. I'm sure you'll find companies that do this, and it will be a price that you can negotiate, because you'll say, well, we want those components. This is the essential pieces of the plan we need to have from you. X, Y, Z. We don't want the rest of that.
What's your suggestion? How are we going to phrase the vote then? I think we're all interested in starting the
Okay.
process,
Then that's really,
the
I
vote.
think at this point, I don't
I
think we need
I think that's the appropriate
yeah,
vote, and at the
yeah,
next
right.
meeting, we can come back with a detailed timeline
Okay.
and the components involved.
So, go ahead.
Sorry to prolong this. Is there something that we can go back to MASC and say, who have other communities used in this process? And can you give us the names so that we could make sure that they have our RFQ, so that we can get reasonably priced?
Almost every major general contractor who builds schools have a component of their, because they do the feasibility studies, a component of their company, like DRA, who will do that.
Well,
An arm
I
of
guess
their
that's the
company who will
private
do
industry,
that.
though. I'm talking
Yeah.
about from the Mass Association of School Committees, who work with the other communities like we are, that could provide us with, these are some names that we've used that we've been satisfied with.
Well, it would be.
That might be an extra cost though, right?
I don't think it would be Mass that would have that. If you were going to contact anybody, you could go off the list from MSBA for GCs. But again, it's a pretty short list, and, you know, you can look them up and see them yourself, and.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I may, given the number of solicitations that we receive, anytime that there's anything advertised, I don't think we'll have a shortage of firms.
Sure, but again, that's the people that are coming to us from the private industry. I'm saying, can we look at it from the other side, the people that have lived in our seats and have the ability to say, we've been satisfied with the work from these people, they've given us a reasonable cost. I don't know, just like, don't
can-
reinvent the wheel.
We can reach out on the listserv
Okay.
to ask, you know, other
Okay.
superintendents, business managers, who have they used that have been, you know, reasonable cost,
And
have done
satisfactory
major
work.
master facility studies, sure.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to start the process.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous. Consideration of requests for home instruction.
You have in your packet this evening, I've received 2 requests for homeschooling. One student in grade 6 and one in grade 1.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, Kathy has something. Go ahead.
For those people that are requesting the home instruction, do we have a conversation with them to find out, like, is there a reason that is attributing to this?
You do not have a conversation with them. They
Okay.
have a right to homeschool.
Okay, I just want to make sure that
Right.
if there's some other reason why they're going to homeschool,
It
that
could
we
be a
can-
religious reason, it could simply, but the advice that I would give is that it is a choice they can make under the law.
Yeah.
And generally, other than if they want to reenter school, and we can determine what grade, we can ask about assessments, we certainly can request they come in, but I can tell you that that will be met with some legal challenges. And it has been met with legal challenges, yes. So you have to be, I guess I've been cautioned over the years as to what we can ask those people who choose to homeschool their children, and they have a right to do that under the law, yeah. So,
It's like you're trying to probably talk them out of it if you question them.
yes, yes, to some degree.
Stephanie has
Mhm.
something to say.
Stephanie?
I've asked in the past, and we've actually put like a little survey together, just to see if there was something that we could do differently. And nothing really came back ever as we weren't doing what we were supposed to be doing. No real rhyme or reason.
Yeah. A lot of it is just an individual choice that a parent makes for all kinds of reasons, but very cautious as to, sending something out. Kathy, I would just caution against that, no.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous. Consideration of requests for leaves of absences. Dr. Nash?
Yes, you have in your packet this evening 2 requests for leaves of absence. The first request, and this is under Article 15, extended leaves of absence of the DCTA collective bargaining agreement. The first request is from biology teacher Kurt Savage for an extended leave of absence for the entire school year. He's worked in the district since 2008. I mention that because that is one of the stipulations, that someone has to have worked in the district for a period of time. He's requested this leave under Section L. I provided that information for you, the language in Section L. You have his letter. I would suggest to you that probably after reading the letter, it may fit better under Section J, other leaves of absence without pay to be granted by the school committee, because in Section L, the language states that the leave that you take in under Section L is for the purpose of study and research, including employment in another field. And Mr. Savage's request is to stay in the field of education, but in a private school setting. So he's going to explore that.
And this is without pay?
This is without pay.
And then they pay the 100% of their health insurance, right?
They are eligible for COBRA.
They're eligible for COBRA, okay.
So that is the
And that's
first-
at 100%. We don't,
COBRA is
we
borne
don't
by
have anything,
the employee.
yeah. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion. What do you recommend on this?
I don't have any recommendation
Okay.
because the school committee votes on extended leaves.
Make a recommendation to approve the leave of absence for Kurt Savage.
Okay, do I have a second? Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous.
Thank you. Okay. You also have a second request in your packet. The second request is from Kevin Foley. Kevin's in the audience this evening, so he could certainly speak to you about this. He's requested to extend his leave for the 1920 school year. This comes under Section F of Article 15, the extended leave of absence. I've provided you that language from that particular section, Section F. And Mr. Foley's request falls under for medical reasons.
Okay, and is there any medical documentation that we have? this evening?
You have in your packet what I have received. I don't know, Kevin, if,
I sent an email back today.
because I know I communicated with you late this afternoon to see if,
Yeah, I just hadn't got it from my primary care
Okay.
physician.
okay, is that,
They did indicate to me that I
Okay.
can provide.
okay, well,
So should we-
so you may, it's up, you may want to table this till the
Yeah.
8th, maybe? Will we have that by then?
That's fine.
Okay, all
Good,
right.
so we'll table it because
Okay.
it does state in the contract medical documentation you should have.
Okay,
So
so
we'll
we'll put it
table
back
it.
on for the 8th.
Okay.
We'll table that May 8th. Okay.
And that concludes
Yes.
the leave of absence.
Yep, that does.
And consideration of requests for overnight travel, Dr. Nash?
Sure. I'm going to ask that you table that this evening. We're going to bring it back on May 8th. This is for overnight out-of-state travel. I met with the director of bands, instrumental director, and one of the things that we've had some discussion actually with the policy subcommittee in looking at the policy that exists currently for field trip, which I believe you have a copy of that, I think in your packet. We had talked about some of the processes and the forms that may not exist, particularly for out-of-state overnight trips. And so, because this request came in before vacation, I knew that I wouldn't be able to develop some forms, but over vacation, I was able to create some forms, and I have actually asked Mr. McCouga to be a guinea pig in using these forms, so that you would receive some consistent information, as opposed to receiving a letter, which is more difficult to try to decipher from that letter, all of the information that you would probably want. So he is going to use those forms, and we'll put that back on May 8th. And actually, his counterpart came today, and I gave her the same forms. So, and that will be something we'll be discussing at the policy subcommittee. Actually, I'll be sharing with them. But I think it will give us a little bit more consistency in the type of information that you would probably want to receive to be able to make, an informed decision. So he's working on that. He just wasn't able to get it done in 24 hours. So we'll put it back on.
Okay, and before we do our next meeting dates, the Wage and Benefit Review Subcommittee met on April 23rd, Kathy and I. And Kathy, if you want to give a little
Well, for those who don't know,
Summary.
that involves all the support staff, cafeteria, custodians, secretaries, instructional assistants. And how we do the process is, Mr. Matthews sent out an email to all those people asking if they had any concerns about it. They're not a union, but they're kind of treated like one. They have their wages and benefit schedule. I don't know if the whole committee has, Mr. Matthews, does the whole committee have copies of that wage and benefit schedule?
I do
Maybe you
not
should
know.
get some.
We
Maybe you should get them
do
for
have
all of them.
copies,
It's like
so
a
we can
little
get those.
contract.
Yeah.
And so they send emails to Mr. Matthew concerns they might have for the next round. It's on the same cycle as the teachers. And he's only gotten one response, I think, so far. But
To date.
So we, Mrs. O'Coin, Mr. Matthew, Dr. Nash and I are meeting on May 1st in increments of half hours. At 2:30, we'll meet with the, I'm not sure the sequence, like
I don't
custodians.
have the schedule off the top of
2:30
my head.
custodians, 3 o'clock instruction. It's like a half an hour. They come and they speak to us and tell us their concerns. And then we meet as a subcommittee and react to those concerns. And we'll come back to you. You have to, it's just like approving the teacher's contract. So we're just starting now, but it shouldn't take,
No,
we should.
no, we're moving right along.
Yeah. So that's basically famous last words.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy.
Famous last words.
Very
Moving
good.
right along. Famous
We
last
are.
words.
I thought that too.
500 balls to go.
Next meeting date, school committee meetings. Wednesday, May 8th, will be at the Shepherd Hill Regional High School Library. Wednesday, May 22nd, Charlton Middle School, 7 p.m., both of them. Budget and Finance Subcommittee, Tuesday, May 7th at 9 a.m. in the Central. 8:30? Okay. I'm only reading what I have on paper.
Typo.
Okay. Budget and Finance Subcommittee, Tuesday, May 7th.
We actually also have one on the 30th.
Okay.
At 9 a.m.
All right. So everybody has the Budget and Finance, and that's at central office. Policy Review Subcommittee, Mary, what did you say, May what?
April 30th at
Okay.
9 a.m. at Shepherd Hill.
Okay,
And then also May 6th at Shepherd
Okay.
Hill at 1 p.m.
all right. And then we have our Wage and Benefit Review Subcommittee on Wednesday, May 1st, and it will start at 2:30 p.m. in the Shepherd Hill Library. Future agenda items, anyone? Okay, we'll think of quite a few.
We do. We have,
We have the two that we tabled.
Consideration of the position,
you'll have the Mars report, yes, on the 8th. And we'll put the request for the out-of-state overnight field trips on at the 8th, the leave request. I think, do we start with some of the handbooks? I'm not sure if it's the 8th or the 22nd. Dean, do you remember the handbooks and whether those are the 22nd?
22nd.
Okay, we're starting with handbooks and school improvement plans, so that's the second meeting in May. Okay.
And then how about our reorganization
That's-
discussion? We're going to do it next.
May 8th.
May 8th, okay. Anyone else?
I thought that the Houghton Mifflin group was going to come in and discuss it here at school committee. Is that now that one meeting you're going to have?
What we're
is
going
one
to
of
do
the-
is first do a presentation to all of our staff, and then I would assume we'll bring, if that goes well, then we'll bring them in your second meeting in May,
Okay.
your last meeting, to do an abbreviated of what they're going to talk about with the whole staff. So that's kind of our plan at this point.
Do you mind informing us when the whole staff meeting is? Are we allowed to attend?
13th we're looking at, right?
Well, I haven't talked about
Okay.
it with the elementary.
All right, we know that, yeah.
Tomorrow.
We're hopeful to do it during the faculty meeting, which is the May 13th, Kathleen. Yeah, but we haven't talked with all the principals
Sure.
yet. I've only kind of talked with one, and
And
Barbara's
we
going to
can
follow
get
up.
an email, just Barbara.
Are we allowed to attend?
Not tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you can go.
We're allowed to attend if I
Yeah,
wanted to
sure.
see the whole presentation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We can get that out to you, yeah.
Monday.
I would suggest, because it's, yeah,
What,
yeah.
where are
I'm
those
probably going to
meetings?
attend it again, and I've seen it once. It's just too many components. Yeah, okay.
She will email us,
Yes,
Barbara.
we'll
okay?
email you when.
They'll come here as well, though. It just will be.
But that will be a little bit shorter, so if they want to see the whole thing, which is about
If
an
there will be
hour,
more questions from the
a little more
faculty,
than
then
that.
more interaction with the
Yeah.
faculty, they could ask questions.
Right, that will be the longer.
Right,
Yeah.
so that's
But
better.
you can, if you're able to come to the longer one, you're certainly welcome.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, and that brings us up to executive session. This evening, we will enter into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation with union personnel. If any open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, and to conduct strategy sessions, preparation for negotiations with union personnel, only to reconvene into regular session, to take votes if necessary, and adjourn. I will take a roll call to enter into executive session. Jamie?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes. We are now in executive session.